Hi. Official recaps here.
In 1993, scientists found a new technology known as CRISPR which allowed them to treat incurable diseases through genetic editing. However, in 2016, the US government banned CRISPR because of its potential for misuse, calling it a weapon of mass destruction. In the present day, Carrie is requesting assistance from the control room, as the rest of the crew is dead, and the space station Athena-1 is in complete disarray. Carrie needs to get the mutagen samples, though, or her boss won't let her open the escape capsule's door. Carrie, scared but determined to live, makes her way through the wreck and collects the 3 samples, but sadly, the enemy spots her. It appears that a botched experiment produced a monstrous mutant rat that went insane and is now pursuing Carrie. The astronaut bolts, swerving to avoid the flames and debris as quickly as she can, and she enters the escape capsule just in time to avoid being caught by the rat. Carrie departs and witnesses the station blow up, but sadly, the rat's destructive behavior has also damaged the capsule, causing it to blow up and killing Carrie as the fragments fall to Earth. At some point afterwards, primatologist Davis takes his friend Nelson and 2 new workers to see the gorilla enclosure at San Diego Wildlife Sanctuary. In order to defuse Pavo's aggressive behavior, which is upsetting the female members, Davis employs sign language. When George, Davis's closest friend, arrives at that precise moment, Pavo becomes hostile once more due to the presence of another male gorilla. Pavo chases after an employee who tries to flee after becoming frightened and pushes him to the ground. But George intervenes and scares Pavo away before anything significant occurs. After it's over, Davis and George crack a lot of jokes at each other using sign language, and Davis tells George that Pavo needs to be protected too now that he's family. After that, one of the staff members approaches Davis to ask him out, but he declines, and Nelson makes fun of him for thinking that animals are more important than people. The 3 mutagen canisters that Carrie managed to retrieve arrive on Earth later that evening. George is sprayed by one that lands in the sanctuary. A wolf finds the second one that lands in the forest, and a crocodile swallows the third one that falls into the river. When Davis arrives at the sanctuary the following day, Nelson informs him of some bad news. George is acting strangely aggressively and broke into the grizzly enclosure, killing a bear. Upon examining George, Davis finds that the gorilla has also sustained injuries from the bear. The most shocking thing is that George has become considerably larger. He is dejected and apologizes for his error. After examining the area, Davis's team decides to preserve the canister for future study after discovering it. Upon reviewing George's blood work later, he concludes that it is inexplicable, because there is a lethal concentration of growth hormone present, which should have resulted in his instant death. Nelson believes George ought to be put down, but Davis won't give in until they have more information. Brett and Claire, siblings, are fighting in the interim. Brett is enraged over all the money they lost when the station exploded because their company, Energene, is the one conducting the mutagen research. Claire is content with the outcome, though, as the mutant rat provides proof that the Project Rampage experiment worked. She is also hopeful about the future, because Burke and his private military service are hired to retrieve one of the containers, which was designed to withstand re-entry, according to a report from the Meteor Society. When Burke's team gets to the forest, they find that all of the wolves have been slain and that the canister has been damaged and emptied. They report these findings to Claire. She is now aware that the wolf is changing, and she gives Burke the order to apprehend the creature. While in the city, Kate watches the news and finds out about George's bear attack as well as the Aten-1 tragedy. As a former Energene scientist, she quickly deduces the situation and heads to the sanctuary, informing Davis that the canister he discovered is a sample she created. Davis is hesitant to approach Kate, but she reassures him by listing all of George's symptoms and claiming to be the only one who can heal him. It turns out that the mutagen is modifying George's DNA by fusing it with animal DNA, which is why he is growing bigger and more violent. George suddenly loses his temper and begins beating the cage until he breaks it and gets out. Then he starts to storm through the sanctuary, causing chaos among the guests and even smashing cars with his fists. The cops show up and prepare to shoot him, but Davis intervenes and uses sign language to calm George down. The cops put down their guns, but a sniper in a helicopter doesn't get the memo and uses tranquilizer darts to knock George down. Meanwhile, back in the forest, Burke and his team encounter Ralph, the mutated wolf. They manage to shoot Ralph down from the helicopter, and then land to search for the body, only to find that the body has vanished and instead of that huge paw print on the ground, frightening a few soldiers. Shortly after, Ralph launches an unexpected attack and starts murdering each soldier individually. Ralph has developed a very thick skin from the earlier shot, so the bullets only tickle him as he tries to defend himself with his weapons and the helicopter's machine gun. Additionally, he has grown to such a size that he is able to attack the helicopter and destroy it with his enormously high leaps. Burke, the lone survivor, tries to battle the wolf once more on the ground, but Ralph eats him up with ease. In the evening, George is being taken away in a government plane with Davis and Kate after they are arrested by FBI agent Russell for conducting unlawful experiments on him. When Davis sees George in the cage, he notices his wounds are already healing. Then Russell tries to interrogate them, teasing Davis for quitting the army to take care of animals and behaving like a complete twat by insulting the duo and ignoring their warnings on how dangerous it's to keep George in a plane. He also reveals that Kate was fired from Energene 2 years ago after she tried to steal the company's research, for which she spent 13 months in prison. This causes Kate to admit she can't actually cure George, and now Davis doesn't trust her anymore. Back in Energene, Claire learns Kate was arrested and Brett thinks she's gathering evidence to bring down the company, so he sees her as a threat. It's also revealed that Claire does have a cure for the mutagen, so she makes a plan. She'll attract all the mutated animals to her building by using low-frequency radio waves, and the military will be waiting for them to kill them. That way Claire can collect the DNA and sell it later. She doesn't worry about Kate because she's sure George will kill everyone in the plane sooner or later. When Claire turns on the device, Ralph immediately stops rampaging through the roads and the cars and starts making his way to the city. Lizzie sensing it, the mutated crocodile also takes off. Although George is meant to be asleep on the plane, Claire's trick causes him to awaken in a rage. He starts destroying everything around him, including the cage, and throws people around as if they are insignificant. When Russell tries to pursue him, George swiftly knocks him down beneath his foot. The guards begin firing at him ineffectively. When Davis tries to engage him in conversation, another soldier opens fire, infuriating George even more. The plane starts to descend after a bullet hits a box of explosives, which detonates and destroys the turbine. Davis quickly puts parachutes on himself, Kate, and Russell as George is being pushed against the wall by a cart, and they all jump out of the plane just in time to prevent George from being hurt in the crash. Nevertheless, the body is not discovered when they land and investigate the crash site. However, a trail in the grass suggests that George also survived and is heading into the city. Claire at Energene is enraged to learn that Kate survived the plane crash when the FBI shows up to seize all of the records and research the company has. Claire tries to clear her own name by telling the agents that Kate was the one responsible for all of the chaos the beasts caused. Going back to Davis, he tries to leave Kate behind because he has already seen far too much of the worst aspects of humanity during the war and is sick of it. George was only a baby when he was saved, watching as people killed his mother by hiding beneath the car. When Kate reveals the motivation behind her creation of CRISPR, Davis chooses to give her a chance. She attempted to destroy the mutagen when the company sought to weaponize it in an attempt to treat her brother's fatal illness, for which she was imprisoned. Her brother passed away while she was imprisoned. Russell contacts his men to be rescued, because he now feels a connection with the two people who saved his life. Colonel Blake then takes the group to an Air Force base, where he plays video of George and Ralph sprinting toward the city. A gorilla and a wolf cannot travel in a straight line to the same location, as Davis points out. Kate responds that they are being called by something, which implies Claire is probably waiting with an antidote. Russell stands by their advice, but Blake dismisses them, saying he doesn't want civilians involved. When Davis's attempts to reason with the soldiers outside fail, he starts a fight and swiftly takes out both of the guards. When Russell spots them trying to steal a helicopter, he gives them the phone so they can stay in touch and the keys. Blake's team tries to stop the beasts in the meantime, but all of their weapons, including the large explosions, are ineffective, and the army is destroyed. Blake decides as a result to leave the city before the beasts arrive, and Russell notifies Davis of this. Davis believes they won't be able to get everyone out in time. When George and Ralph arrive at the city, the destruction immediately begins. They bring down buildings, destroy vehicles, and even hit any helicopter that comes closer. The military meets them with a vast army of tanks and weaponry, but nothing works, and the beasts just keep themselves busy wrecking everything in their path. Soon, Lizzie also arrives through the river, joining the other beasts to cause even more damage, using its big mouth to bite the tanks and jets that get in the way. Desperate for a solution, Blake orders his men to get a bomb ready to wipe out half of the city. Russell makes an effort to persuade Blake that he doesn't trust Davis and Kate because they stole his helicopter and threw Russell out, but Blake doesn't buy it. Russell calls for a ride in order to make some arrests at that precise moment, after receiving the results of the evidence discovered by the company. As the bomb-carrying jet takes off, Davis and Kate manage to reach Energene and pilfer 3 vials of antidote. Claire, on the other hand, arrives to stop them after spotting them on security cameras and explains that the antidote will stop the aggression but not the beast size. After taking the vials from Kate, she shoots Davis, causing him to pass out on the ground. Afterward, Claire takes Kate as a hostage and takes her to the roof with her, but before they can escape in a helicopter, George climbs to the top of the building and breaks the helicopter's tail. This also almost kills Kate, but at that moment Davis comes back and grabs her as he explains the bullet didn't hit any vital organs. While George proceeds to destroy the antenna sending the signal, Kate reveals that she managed to keep one of the vials, so they can still save George at least. Claire tries to confront the duo again, so Kate uses the chance to put the antidote in her bag before punching her as Davis calls for his friend. George comes forward and grabs Kate to eat her, therefore getting the antidote as well. Meanwhile, Brett is trying to escape through the stairs, taking the last computer and a lab rat with him so he can make business again later. He bumps into Russell on the ground floor, and the agent takes the things from him in exchange for letting him go instead of arresting him. However, when Brett makes it outside, he's suddenly crushed by falling debris. Outside, Lizzie and Ralph join in the destruction of the building while George starts to calm down thanks to the antidote. Just before the building collapses, Davis and Kate take the damaged helicopter and manage to escape while the helicopter crashes to the ground. Davis then notes that George is feeling better at last and that many civilians are still present. When Davis hears Lizzie and Ralph fighting, he tells Kate to go find Russell and gets ready to fight alongside George. The animals roll around and strike each other viciously, but Lizzie ends up killing Ralph by biting his neck. Now that George and Lizzie are facing off, Davis tosses a belt of grenades at Lizzie's back because it appears that George is having trouble winning. Sadly, Lizzie has become extremely strong, and the grenades barely cause any harm. After a short while, Lizzie gets well and throws George against a building, puncturing the gorilla's chest with a steel bar. Lizzie then makes an attempt to close in on him to finish him, but Davis dodges her and distracts the crocodile with as many weapons as he can take from the helicopter. Lizzie gives into it and starts pursuing Davis, nearly resulting in his death. But George grabs the steel bar and lunges forward, stabbing Lizzie in the eyes to end the fight. Russell calls Blake to relay the news, after Kate informs him about the antidote. Blake determines to halt the airstrike mission, after noticing the deaths on the screens, and realizing George is doing well. Regretfully, George faints during the victory, forcing Davis to pause and mourn his closest companion. But when he's about to leave, Davis notices some twitching and realizes George is just messing with him. The gorilla offers his middle finger before Davis and he share a fist bump. Now Davis's next mission is to find a place where they can place George.
If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.